Hello there, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. Today we're going to be talking about self-sabotage and self-esteem. Now you're going to say, oh, Linda, what does that have to do with God? Well, it has everything to do with God. Why? Why? Well, because you're a spark of God. And when you don't care enough about yourself to give yourself a decent pat on the back when you deserve it, and to know that you do deserve it, and to know that you do deserve help, you're disrespecting God. Yep, yes, you are. Yep. If I say to people, would you do that to God? They'd say, don't be ridiculous. If they're talking about yelling and screaming and getting a fight with someone. Don't be silly. What's wrong with you, Linda? Well, what do you think you are? The body is a material that's going to disappear when it's your time to cross over. But your soul is everlasting, and what is your soul made out of? God stuff. I don't care what scientists eventually call it, but it's God stuff. That's good enough for me. God light, God particles, God essence, God being, doesn't matter. So you, as a spark of the divine, are entitled to all of the good things in the universe. And I'm not necessarily talking about material things, because not everyone can be phenomenally wealthy. And that's not your karma in every lifetime to be phenomenally wealthy. Because perhaps you would become too amused with yourself as a very wealthy person. Not mentioning names, but those housewives on television, gosh, are they obnoxious. On the Bravo show? Yeah. I wouldn't want any of them to live in my neighborhood. I wouldn't want any of them to know where I lived, much less be involved with these people. They all need to be on a psychiatrist's couch. Many people get so enamored with the fabulousness of being wealthy, they forget what it's like to be hungry, to not have enough money to pay the rent, to pay the phone bill, to take a bus. Talk to people who lived through the Depression. Or talk to people now who are losing their homes. I'm not turning this into a political discussion today, but what the Republicans have done since George Bush won, then Clinton cleared up, and George Bush 2, that is vomiting all over us now as we speak. You cannot give tax breaks to the wealthy and talk about trickle-down economics. It doesn't work. They're talking about spreading the wealth, but it's the same thing, because nobody dares use the term trickle down, because we all know it doesn't work. So when you give people jobs, and when you fix the infrastructure of the country, then you have a safer, happier country, and people are happier. Not everyone wants to make $1 million a year. They want to be happy in their old neighborhood. Maybe you're Italian, you want to live in Little Italy in New York. Maybe you want to live in Chinatown in New York or San Francisco. You might be happy wherever you are. You don't aspire to live in a fabulous mansion by the ocean, which could be wiped out in a hurricane, by the way. So when you say to yourself, why is this always going wrong? Or why is that person always mean to me? Or why is this always happening? Why is that always happening? Examine the situation. What exactly is happening? Are you always late for your bus? Okay, let's examine this. Or your train. I used to have to take the 7:32 in the morning into New York City. I know. My executive producer is sitting here and she made a face, because I'm not a morning person. To me, morning is anything before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that is because I'm up all night. I'm a night person. Okay, so can you imagine? And I had long hair then as well, so I had to fix it every day, because you don't wear long hair into a business environment, ladies. Sorry. If you do, you pull it back. You don't have it flopping in your face. And I had to put my makeup on and get dressed and take care of my kitty cat and drive to the station and climb those stairs in high heels, which stupidly I started wearing in high school because my then boyfriend was 6'4" and I was 5'4". It was real hard to talk to someone who was a foot away. And there I was running up the stairs to catch the train, and I missed it only once in a year. And I swore that stupid train came early, but I missed it because I got stuck at a light. So, is it a circumstantial situation? Is there an accident in your way? Is there an accident in your way frequently because it's a bad intersection? Then figure out another way to get there. Are you a sleepy person? Go to bed a half an hour early. I'm not even saying an hour. Go to bed a half an hour early. Have some warm milk before you go to bed, or take some melatonin. Do you have someone who calls you every morning just to check in or just to tell you the latest problems? Let your voicemail get it. Look at the situation, look at the circumstances surrounding it, and more than likely, you can fix that sabotaging. If you keep answering the phone because you say, my friend may drop dead, can you save that person over the phone? Probably not. So therefore, when you get to work, or if you're sitting on the train or the plane or the bus, you can check your voicemail then. So it'll be 20 minutes after the person called you. And if somebody calls you every single morning at a certain time, you probably got it figured out by now who it is and what they're going to be saying. So instead of stressing yourself about leaving the house, you can be stressing yourself, maybe not quite as much, sitting on the bus or the train and you're not late. Fix that. That's simple. Are you letting a particular person make you depressed? Well, who is that person? What is the relationship? Is it your mother? Is it your sister? Is it your father, your grandfather, your best friend, your neighbor down the street? Figure out who it is. And make a list of those people, unless it's one person. And then put the reasons next to that name as to why they're causing you stress. Because when you're stressed, you do one of two things. Either you race along faster and forget things or trip and fall, or you get slower because you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. That's what I do. The way I feel like I've just been buried in wet cement. And so you say to yourself, why is that? Does the person truly have sad, serious problems or maybe health issues, and you're the only one they can vent to? Okay, do it on the way to work. Don't let them do it to you when you are most vulnerable, which is when you need to be at a certain place at a certain time. Or perhaps when you're walking in the door, they're on the phone. And you haven't even taken your shoes off yet, or kissed the cat or the dog. Kiss the husband, kiss the kids. Is that how you want your day at home to start? Now, normally I tell people when they get home from work to shower. You washed off the day. But if you still have business calls to make, or you have these kinds of people to deal with, don't shower till after all the calls are made. And then make a rule that you don't answer the phone after, say, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That's it. Goes to voicemail. Turn the volume off. Because you're allowing them to sabotage your evening with your loved ones. And even if it's just you and the cat, doesn't the cat deserve your full attention all day long? Pussycat sitting home, crying, meow, meow, where's my mom, where's my dad, meow, meow, wish I had more food, meow, meow, who's that person outside, meow, meow, that's not my mom, meow, meow, who the heck is that at the door leaving a box? What is that box for me? Oh, I wonder if that box is for me. Boy, I can't wait to get home and tell mom about all the birds I saw. Well, you get home and you're depressed and you're on the phone, the poor cat's sitting there going, what did I do? The kids are saying, what did I do? Why can't I get attention? She gives attention to everybody else. Why can't I get some? Your husband's going, here we go again on the phone with so-and-so. I might as well go live in the basement. We'll talk about paying attention to your spouse at another show, but it's really important that you pay attention to the people who are in your house, whether they have 2 feet or 4 feet or just wings because they're birds. And fish, right. My executive producer has a fabulous pond, waterfall, and koi. Magnificent pond, which a very dear person to her designed. Moi, because that's one of the things I do is feng shui and yard design and home feng shui. And so they need attention too, or they'll die because they need food. And they also are animals who really understand that they belong in a certain place. I don't know how many of you saw a year or two ago on the Animal Channel this koi, and that's a giant carp. If you see carp in the wild, they're brown and they're unattractive, but that's what koi are. And guess who developed them? These magnificent fish that you see in ponds that look like gigantic goldfish. They could be all orange or orange and white or orange, white and black, all white, whatever. Who developed that magnificent variation? Because they were mutations that were developed into a separate species. Samurai. Samurai warriors of Japan who were busy chopping heads off all day long and doing the martial arts. But then they came home and they would bathe and they would change and they would sit and meditate. And they're the ones who work together to look at these mutations and say, look, here's one with a little orange, here's one with a little white, let's breed these two together. And lo and behold, they developed a magnificent species of fish that people all over the world enjoy. So they went from killing people to understanding that they needed the exact opposite. They needed peace and calmness, and they got it. Now, if people from hundreds of years ago could figure out that yes, they're assassins and yes, they're protectors of the nobleman or the shogun, and they're capable of great ferocity, and therefore they must have the opposite when they go home. They must have peace and calmness and wisdom, and most samurai were celibate, similar to monks. They didn't want the distraction of wife, children, home responsibilities, and there were usually people, usually monks or monks in training, who cleaned up their homes and did the shopping or chopping the wood or whatever. And they just meditated, they practiced their martial arts, and they bred their koi. So therefore, how come they, as professional assassins, can care enough about themselves to give themselves the respect as sparks of a god, and you can't? Aren't you supposed to be smarter? You've got your computers and your iPads and your knee pads and your iPhones and your cell phones and whatever phones. By the way, I was at dinner the other night with dear friends, and they were all talking about getting the one sitting here is not guilty, by the way, of this. All getting the new whatever 5 that thing is, that phone, that cell phone.
iPhone 5.
iPhone 5. Guess what? They all have the iPhone 4. Why do you need the iPhone 5? Just because it goes 30 seconds faster. Who cares?
Okay, so back to self-sabotage.
No, wait. I want to get back to this because this is my observation.
I see.
They were all foaming at the mouth. Couldn't wait to get this new phone. Of course, they're going to lose money by selling their number 4s to get the number 5s. None of them are in phenomenally fabulous financial positions where they can afford to throw these extra hundreds of dollars away just to get a new phone. So my question is why? It does everything you need. What do you want to do? Talk to Martians? Are you reprinting a newspaper for the entire world to see in the next 15 minutes? No, that made me sad. Made me sad to see how caught up so-called enlightened people who do meditate are in technology. So turn this technology off for a while and listen to the sound of your own life. Why are you unhappy or depressed? Why do you feel lonely? Why do you not have friends in your life that you think you should have? Because maybe there are people you know and you admire, but you just think they don't consider you as friends. Well, maybe they do, and they think you don't consider them as friends. Why not invite them over for tea? Notice I don't say cocktails. I don't like alcohol. People get stupid. People get violent, and people get drunk and go on the road and kill other people. So therefore, invite them over in the afternoon or the evening for a special tea. Study Japanese tea ceremony. It's a lovely way to serve tea. It's very unique. Ask people to wear something comfortable, but a little dressy, and a special piece of jewelry maybe that they like, and come over at, say, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and you serve tea and perhaps some special little cookies that you get from your bakery. and see how you enjoy their company and how they enjoy yours. Then you'll find out whether or not these people really like you. Maybe they've been waiting for you to make some kind of overture because in your lack of self-esteem, you have seemed remote. And you have seemed like you've had your nose up in the air when really you've just been scared. Scared that people don't like you. And you pull yourself away. So if you stretch out your hand and they show up, that's a hint that maybe they do like you, or maybe they want to find out if they like you. And you can find out if you like them. And if they turn the invitation around and say, please come into my house next Friday, I think this is fabulous, then you've got a better idea of where you stand. And now you've got new friends. And now you've got people you can chat with about things. And now you don't feel so alone. Or if you're all talking about a movie, arrange a movie date. Everybody be here at the 7:30 show on Friday night. We'll all go in together and sit together. Use your imagination about things that you may have a common interest with other people. And reach out your hand. If everybody says no, then maybe you're the sober one and they're the drunks or the druggies, and they know that you don't do that kind of thing in life. So you need to look elsewhere for other friends. What is the name of that show that replaced the closer?
Major Crimes.
Major Crimes. Turns out the juvenile delinquent kid, Rusty, that the captain took in, who replaced Kara Sedgwick, Mary McDonnell, who I love dearly. I love them both. They're great actresses. Took in this juvenile delinquent, and I'm using a nicer term for him than they used in the show.
1 minute to break, Linda.
1 minute to break, so I'll make it fast. He definitely was a juvenile delinquent, and now suddenly he wants to stay there. And this juvenile delinquent, who used to be a male prostitute, is what the story goes, is now he didn't want to go to this Catholic school. He took on 3 kids and beat them up and put them in the hospital because they were picking on him. But now he's joining the chess club. So who knew this kid, who was a juvenile delinquent, could play chess? And they want him in the chess club. So look other places for your friends. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about self-sabotage. Stay with us for Metaphysically Speaking. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. And we are coming to you either on the radio or on the web. Check Facebook on Metaspeak, metaspeak.com, or YouTube, or we've got a television show running in Sarasota. And you can just find me anywhere, or you can call my office at 727-736-4567, or leave word on our website as to how you can find us, depending upon where you live. And again, Metaphysically Speaking, and my executive producer, Shawnee, is here with me. And we're talking about self-esteem and self-sabotage. Now, what if you tell me that you're so tired you don't have time to reach out to anybody because you're just too busy? Well, then cut out some of your activities that are making you busy and fix your diet. Dr. Oz had an interesting show today on people who metabolize food differently. And some people need, say, dark fish and dark chicken and steak, which I don't recommend eating animals, but nevertheless, I'm a vegetarian. That means I do eat eggs and cheese. And it was always my preference, even as a baby. So look at the sugars, cut them down, and you will find out how much more energy you have. That doesn't mean you can never have a cookie. It means what's the favorite time of day that you'd like to reward yourself. Maybe after your shower for the evening, you're sitting quietly watching one of your favorite TV shows with the cat on one side and the dog on the other and the husband in the middle. Well, then have your cookie at that time. You'll really enjoy it. And you'll enjoy it in the company of 2-legged and 4-legged people who love you. So you would be amazed. What happens when you get sick? Does the world collapse? Or do things suddenly get done that you used to think need to be done, and maybe other things don't get done at all, and you find out, hey, what's the big deal? We didn't need it anyhow. So think about if you had an hour left to live. What would you do? And you will be amazed at how much you can cut out for that hour. So make your time that way. Are people around you causing you to self-sabotage? You're not pretty, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too short. Is your religion or your society? Perhaps you're born into a restrictive type of Christianity or Judaism or Islam, and you know you don't fit there. What do? Well, grin and bear it until you're 18 and then you can run legally. And how do you manage in the meanwhile? Well, quietly examine other ways of life, whether through a magazine or through talking to friends, and begin planning what you want to do. You can always get a job as a waitress or a waiter somewhere, live in a group hostel in a local town, and you don't have to have the very best clothes in the world. You can go to Goodwill. Remember, Goodwill employs people who are perhaps handicapped or Down syndrome, who can perform tasks. They can clean the clothing or the furniture that you give them. They can prep them. They can do professional dry cleaning, and they hang them and they sell them. I used to be mad because they were selling them until I found out where the money was going, and it was going to pay these people who couldn't be employed elsewhere. So that is a really good idea. Get your clothes from Goodwill. Get your clothes from the Salvation Army. You can always find a way out. At the very least, go to the police station and say, I'm 18 years old, here's my birth certificate, this is when I was born, they can check it on a computer system. I need safety, I need security, I cannot find my way out of town, I have no money, my parents never gave me any, please help me. And they will refer you to a professional social service organization so that you can get some help. They'll put you on a part-time job, get yourself on your feet, acclimate yourself to freedom, because some people get so scared they run back home. This is the same kind of syndrome for battered wives. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out. Go to the police, go to a special social services organization who will help you. Many of them will house you out of town so you won't run into somebody at the supermarket. So there are ways of getting away from restrictive cultures, restrictive religions, restrictive families who decide how you should live, how you should breathe, how you should think. When you know that is not for you, there is a way out. Are you afraid to be the person that inside you think you should be? Now, I was bullied as a kid. I know many of us were. I was bullied about a lot of things. I was bullied because I was so thin, because I was so sick. I was bullied because suddenly I was the tallest kid in kindergarten. Even the boys. They looked like little elves compared to me. And I'm only 5'4", so figure that out. Today I'm 5'4", then I was 5 feet. I was bullied when I first broke out. At 11, I had my first pimple. I broke out because I was one of the smart kids. I broke out because I was an artist. I broke out because during softball one day, the teacher screamed at me, the gym teacher screamed, decide if you're a lefty or a righty. Well, I didn't know you're supposed to decide, and I didn't really know that I was hitting the ball with the left hand sometimes and hitting the ball with the right hand sometimes. After that, I couldn't hit the ball for a week. I was so traumatized. I went up to her afterwards. I said, Mrs. Parker, what's the difference? She said, well, we need to know. I said, why? As long as I'm hitting the ball, what's the difference? And she just stood there and she went, and walked away. Well, what was the difference? There's no difference. What do they care? I got the bat in my hand. If I hit the ball, what do they care?
Were you 5 feet in kindergarten?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh.
No,
Just
but I was
checking.
at least a head taller than
Yeah.
even the boys.
Yeah.
Which is why I used to play in the playground with the worms, because nobody wanted to talk to me. And the worms were quiet. And then what would happen is kids would come up to you one at a time and tell me their problems. So I've been doing this my whole life. I didn't even have a rest. And before that, when we lived in the apartment building in Jackson Heights, which I understand is not a great neighborhood now, but once upon a time was very exclusive. And the kids were mean to me. One kid used to spit on me, Kathy. Hello, Kathy, wherever you are. Mikey used to punch me and bite me, and there was another kid that used to bite. So my mother said one of the few good things she ever told me was fight back. Well, I didn't like that idea. I just thought I could reason with them. So I would play with the caterpillars in the spring and let them crawl on me, and then I'd carefully put them back on the tree because I think they were tree caterpillars, but who knew then? And one day, Mikey bit me. And I said, Mikey, I don't want you to bite me anymore. I'm going to have to do something. She said, yeah, what are you going to do? And she bit me again on my arm. And apparently, I do remember this, but I don't remember how far I swung. And you've heard the story. My mother used to make me watch baseball. You know, the pitcher, and they pull their arm behind them and they throw that ball. And the catcher throws it back. Well, I did the same to Mikey, and she literally left the ground, went flying through the air, and landed on her fanny. And her mother, Molly, was standing there. And she said, oh, my God. So she brought me and Mikey upstairs to my mother. She said, look, I know you taught her to hit, but did you teach her how hard to hit? And she told her what happened. Well, guess what? Mikey told all the other kids, and nobody ever bit me or spit on me or punched me again. Okay, then it started all over when I moved. So in kindergarten, I was playing with the worms, I was playing with the bugs, but those kids, too, would come to me with their problems. My mommy does this, my daddy does that, blah, blah, blah. I would be solving everything. I'd be sitting in the corner, and they'd be coming to me. Like it was the old shaman sitting in the corner, and the kids were coming through the teepee. So I was a very lonely kid, trust me. And I was always reading, and I was always out in the yard, and I was out down the street in the woods, talking to the birds and the swans. I didn't know swans would beat you up if they were threatened by you. And here the swans were bigger than I was. And I was sitting there on the edge of the lake and talking to the swans.
Did they try to beat you up?
No.
Oh, okay.
They would swim towards me with their babies.
Oh.
And I was surprised the first time one ever trumpeted because somebody was coming up behind me with a dog, which I didn't know. And I didn't know enough to be afraid in those days. And the guy wanted to know what I was doing there. I said, I'm talking to the swans. And I guess it was the male swan, because he was the bigger one, got out of the water and started walking towards the guy. So he backed up with his dog, and the swan just stood there. The swan was next to me, and I couldn't believe how big they are. So I guess the swan was protecting me and the babies. So the guys want to know where I lived, and I pointed. He says, okay, just be careful. So he and his dog took off, and the swan shook himself and got back in the water, and they were swimming around. That was that. So I was much more comfortable in nature than I was with other kids. And I was always much more comfortable with adults than I was with other kids because I thought kids were stupid. And of course, I couldn't figure out why I was so short. And I couldn't drive the car and do the things I needed to do. So I was self-sabotaging for a while because I thought, well, nobody really likes me. Only in that case, they really didn't like me because I was so different. I was weird to them. So I just made do with other things. And that's what you can do as well. If you're in an area where nobody likes you, figure out whether or not you are likable. Maybe these people from their society and their background can't relate to you. The kids who were not quite as smart always made fun of me. Okay, what am I going to do? Make myself stupid? Am I going to start failing in school so I can please a bunch of other kids I don't care about? Or am I going to succeed and do what I need to do and enjoy my studies? You also need to decide whether or not this sabotaging that you are allowing yourself to accomplish is temporary because you're trying to get along, or is it permanent because you've always felt that way? And if you've always felt different, that doesn't mean you have to self-sabotage. Why do you feel different? Are you maybe more artistic and you're in a group of phenomenally educated people, intellectuals, and you need to be in a more artistic community? Are you musical and you need to be in a more musical community? Are you in an intellectual and you're surrounded by a group of artists who have never read a book? Of course, I'm exaggerating. They must have read something sometime, but you know what I'm saying. Are you surrounded by people who are completely and totally different from you? If you are, remove yourself. At least in a way. If you're intellectual, join the chess club. Or join a reading group, or a book club, or a coin club. If you've always loved ancient coins, find yourself a group of people in your community who also love them, even if you don't own them. You can read up about them. You can study history. So are you different? Or are you self-sabotaging to please others, to please your parents, to please your teachers, to please your priest or your rabbi or imam or whoever you're trying to please? You know who you should be pleasing? You. As a spark of God. Because when you're pleasing you, you're also pleasing God. Because you are unique. Yes, we're all sparks of the same divine light creative force. But we all have our own individual experiences from this lifetime and from other lifetimes. So therefore, the imprinting in your DNA is different. And that's what makes things so special. If everybody worked on their specialties, on the things they're really good at, we would have a fabulous community. That's why if everybody was a computer whiz, who'd make the bread? Who'd deliver the paper? Who'd write the paper? Who'd put on the TV shows? Who'd act in the movies? And who'd be selling the computers if everybody was only making them? We'd all be dead because we'd have no food. So therefore, why are you unique? Make a list. There's got to be one thing about you that you like. Even if it's your hair or your feet. I have a cousin who hates her feet. She wears socks all the time. She says, who wants to look at these ugly things? I said, why are they ugly? Well, this toe is longer than the other. I said, well, let's smash it and break it down and cut it off. What do you need it for? She looked at me like I was crazy. I said, you see how stupid this is? You have nice feet. Your toenails are polished. It's fine. Her whole life, she would bury her feet in the sand at the beach.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
So I have a question.
What's your question?
So we only have 4 minutes left in this segment, but what if someone has, in this lifetime, or has brought over from another lifetime, an aspect of shame?
Oh boy, is that important.
It's so important because I see so many of my friends and acquaintances just recycle the same issues and self-sabotage over and over again. And a lot of them even know it.
Right.
And they just can't get off the dime to move forward.
Well, there are two types of people like that. One, which is the impossible to help kind, are the people who love their misery. We all know people who love the drama of whatever misery they're in. The bad marriage, the obnoxious kids, the job they hate. They don't like their hair, over and over and over again. Those are the people who are deeply troubled. And we might be dealing with scars from a past life. We might be dealing with scars from early childhood that they don't remember. And interestingly enough, the older you get, the more you remember about your childhood. And the more things begin to click. However, you might not be able to wait for the next 30 years to figure something out. So the idea is, first of all, if you don't understand it, find yourself a good psychic in the area. I cannot tell you how many people I have worked with over the years who've said that one session with me has been worth 100 visits to the psychiatrist, to the therapist, to the psychotherapist. Now they understand. I give them tools to correct the problem, especially if they've seen it themselves in their own regressions, rebirthings, or their own basic consultations. Or I put things together for them and tell them what I see, and then they start remembering things from maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lifetimes ago. Because when you're dealing with a problem in this lifetime, you always have access to the memory of the lifetime or lifetimes where it was created. You're not punished. And nobody's punishing you because, say, you fear the water or you fear spiders. I don't like spiders. I used to be terrified of them. I've sort of deprogrammed myself by examining them and looking at them and finding out who's poisonous, who's not, and that kind of thing. And the other type of person is the person we'll pick up on when we come back from our break, because they can be helped. But you have to give them reasonable ways to see that they can be helped. Because some people are in complete resistance to being helped. It's not that they don't want to be helped. They think nobody really understands them. How could you, other person, possibly understand what I've gone through? Well, maybe I haven't gone through it in this lifetime, but I have gone through it in another lifetime. And by the way, as a psychic, I feel everything that you do. So try it my way, and we'll see how it works. And we'll see how the rest of it works when we come back with more Metaphysically Speaking. Stay with us. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. This is the last portion of our show on self-esteem and self-sabotage. And you can find us here on the web, or you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on the radio. You just type in metaspeak.com on our Facebook page, and you'll see the times that it might be on your television in your local area. And you can always catch us on the web. So we're always available to you anytime you need us. And if you have comments or questions about the show, leave them there on metaspeak.com on whatever little place you're supposed to leave the comments. And if you're interested in a consultation, you can call 727-736-4567. Okay, so let's get back to the people who can be helped. We talked about the people who can't be helped. And by the way, for the people who can't be helped because they really do not want your help or anybody's help because they love the misery, that is why some people stay in abusive relationships. It's not that they don't know better. It's not that they don't have a way out. They've learned to love the highs and the lows, and the highs and the lows, and the highs and the lows of the drama. Abused wives are especially susceptible to this. After he beats her up, he brings her flowers. Oh, they were so beautiful. And he was so nice. And he made dinner. Yeah, but you got a black eye, honey. And you got a broken rib. So those people you can't help. And they really do need psychological care. Because they have to break the cycle of abuse. Because that is self-sabotage. And regardless of whether or not they like the highs and lows, they need help. Or they'll be dead. Or so crippled they have no life. Those people I would refer to a psychologist. The other people, and remember the old thing about never try to teach a pig to sing, drives you crazy and it ticks off the pig. Let it go. Say, you know what, I'll pray for you. And do mention them in your prayers at night. And prayers are when you talk to God. Meditation is when God talks to you. So let's go to the people who can be helped. Okay, first of all, listen to what they're saying. Unless you go to a psychic and you don't want to say anything at first, I always tell people to make a list of questions so that we cover everything, because sometimes I start picking up on things you have no idea about. So listen to what the person has to say and then ask your questions. Maybe they've already covered what it is you've come to see them about. So truly listen, whether you're the listener to the counselor or you are the person that someone has come to for help. Listen to the whole story. Take notes if you have to. As they say, what are you writing while I'm talking? Say, I need to make sure I pay attention to everything and make the little highlights. And if you are capable of giving common sense advice, and most problems can be solved with common sense, only I think we forget it. Because we're so overhyped with talk shows and specialists and someone who can do this and someone who can do that, that we think we're not capable of using common sense when most of the time that's all it takes. So the common sense that this person may give you, pay attention to it. What do you have to lose? If you say, I tried it, let them say, how long? Or did you try it this way? Or say, you know what, let's think about this, because if I modify that idea to this way, then you're letting that person help you solve the problem. And if you think that this is an unsolvable problem, I would save my money and go to a psychologist who is highly recommended, not just someone you pick out of the book, or not someone who's on your insurance plan, but someone you know is good because you have been referenced either by, say, your family doctor or your friends who may have gone to this person, or a psychic who's really excellent. You want someone who is totally objective and can totally see things that perhaps you cannot see. Because sometimes we get so surrounded by our own environment that we forget there's another world out there. I was saying something to somebody yesterday that, the world seems worse because, number one, it is. As we come to the end of a cycle, things get worse before they get better. And number two, there are more people on the planet, so there are more people who are misbehaving. And number three, we have worldwide media. We can find out what's going on in the remotest corners of the world because there's a camera there or a reporter in a place you've never heard of before. So there are people who can help you. And I would take the $200 that most psychologists charge for a visit. I would save it up. I'd put half of it on your MasterCard if you have to. And go for a visit. It'll only be 45 minutes because that's all they give you. But you know what? It could be the best $200 you ever spent. So therefore, there are ways out of your problems, regardless of what anybody else has told you. And for instance, maybe they're making fun of your looks. Okay, take a look in the mirror. Do you have a unibrow? That's the giant caterpillar that crawls across the top of your eyes. Go to a hair salon that does tweezing and have somebody show you how to tweeze your eyebrows. That's fixable. Have you been dyeing your own hair and you've been missing? So you have gray streaks? Go to a hair professional. And I would say learn how to do your own hair. Because for years, every time I went to a hair specialist, a hair salon, my hair got screwed up. It's never looked so good since I fired the hairdressers. And I've been cutting my own hair since I was a kid. Because every time somebody came at me with a pair of scissors, the hair would be too short. Here's a hint, ladies. They cut your hair when it's wet. When it's wet, it's longer because it's stretching out. When it dries, it's shorter. What do they do to my hair? It's very difficult to find a stylist who will cut your hair dry. I cut a friend's hair, and I always cut it dry. And everybody at work notices the next day, and they say, oh, you got your hair fixed. You got your hair cut. Looks great, great, great. They don't want to do it dry because it takes too much time. So find somebody who will work with you or get a good set of professional scissors and trim it yourself. There are solutions here, people. If you truly have a physical problem that is cosmetically fixable, fix it. You don't need to look like your aunt or your grandma. Question, executive producer Shawnee.
Well, so the other thing I was thinking about, and this came up with a conversation a friend of mine was having who was feeling kind of stuck, and it was their house and their environment. I know you're really big on that as a feng shui expert, but for me, I remember I was selling my house after I was trying to sell it, and all of a sudden I did everything I'd ever wanted to do to the house. Just so
boom, it's sold.
Yeah, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why didn't I do it for myself?
While you were living there.
Exactly. I was like, that's a self-sabotage right there.
Right.
Why am I not worth it?
If you can't stand the color of a room, get a can. I love Bear's paint.
Yeah.
I'm still using, what I do every few years is I go get the same color paint, made up again so it's fresh paint. Although I used a can that was 15 years old, is the same color. I'm telling you, I'm not a Bear spokesperson. I don't get a dime for this. It's the best paint on the market. It's washable, scrubbable, and it's the same color. Now, all of the rooms in my house are painted colors. My guest room is a deep forest green because somebody I know sleeps really well in forest green. And when you used to stay with me,
right,
you slept in forest green like a little lamb.
It was very peaceful.
And I paint the ceiling. I just saved you $300 consultation fee. The same color as the walls.
The other thing is, the test for me now is if I'm embarrassed to have friends over, that's a sign.
I won't let people in my kitchen because
right,
I use it as a desk part-time.
Whatever, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes. If it's a mess and you don't want people to see it, why are you seeing it? And you did fabulous fix-up at your house, your other house, and you were smart enough to fix up this house the way you've wanted it, and you're enjoying it now instead of waiting to sell it and you see it for 3 minutes.
Right.
So if you have a thing in your life, whether it's your shoes or your car or your hair or your unibrow or your friends or the way you spend your day or how you drive to work, fix it, change it. Don't get yourself in the rut where you just say to your car, go to work, and the car immediately goes by itself and takes you there and parks in the same spot and you get out the same way. I have a little problem. I don't like malls. And if I have to go to a mall, it's like being forced to walk the gangplank. And I park in the same place because I always have lost my car in parking lots. How could a psychic lose her car? Very easily. So therefore, sometimes you have to follow a certain set routine for your own sanity. Now, I want to go back to one thing that I said earlier. I want you on a calendar. Yes, I don't mean your phone. I don't mean your iPad. I mean, get a paper calendar. If you love pussycats, get a cute pussycat calendar. If you like butterflies or nature, get something from the Nature Conservancy or the wildlife groups or whatever. Get a calendar and write down every single day one thing you like about yourself and one thing you did right. If you did two, put them both down. Or however many you can count. And every couple of months, go back and refer to the previous months and see how many more things are on your calendar now than were on your calendar when you started. What's the point? The point is we don't give ourselves enough credit. And we begin to think we're worse than we are, or we have more problems than we do, because we don't take a look at our assets.
And then the whole shame cycle continues.
And then your shame cycle continues, as Shawnee just said, because you think you're not good enough. And that reminds me about abusive relationships. If somebody is constantly saying, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not tall enough, get the heck out of there. Because it starts with emotional abuse. It starts with destabilizing you. Parents do this to their children as well, because they're dealing with their own anxieties and their own self-sabotaging, and they want somebody else to be miserable. Me, whatever I've experienced that's been negative in my life, I never want that to happen to anyone else. I tell everyone so they can be wary of a certain situation. So abuse always starts verbally. If someone is abusing you, they do not love you. Regardless of what they say, it's how they behave. So run for your life, because your life can depend upon this. So when you are making your list, you might want to add there, if you think you are being sabotaged by others, say, who's sabotaging me? And then make a list. And then see how you can get rid of the situation, out of the job, out of the neighborhood, out of whatever it is making you miserable. We are not here on the planet to be miserable. We are here on the planet to satisfy the karma of previous lifetimes, or as the Catholics like to call it, original sin. I wish I had a recording of myself in those days when I used to fight with the priests. If we didn't have previous lives, how could we have original sin? What? If we did not live before, how could we have original sin? Of course we had to live before. That's not what the Bible tells us. Well, actually it does, because Jesus says, before I was Yeshua, I was. I don't remember if it was Elijah or Elias. Let's go on to the next question, but I'm still on my question. So, whether you are self-sabotaging or feeling worthless or feeling unworthy, do it anyway. If you feel unworthy of getting an orchid because you may kill it, okay, stick it out in the bushes if you kill it and cut it back and see what happens. I do that with all my orchids, and I have an orchid blooming beautifully right now, lavender and purple. Didn't even notice it till it was in full bloom. You are worthy of happiness, even if that happiness comes from feeding the squirrels and the birds. Even if that comes from looking outside and enjoying a tree. You're here to satisfy the karma, which is your set of lessons for this lifetime, to learn from it, and to enjoy. If you love that, my favorite time of day is that hour before sunset. I called it the golden hour. I love that time of day. The colors are more vivid on the flowers and the trees, the leaves, the green, the lawn. Everything is much more powerful. I love that time of day. And I also love midnight. So make sure that even if you just go to the window at your office and look out the window for a while for that time of day, you're not here to be miserable. We have modern plumbing, if you're in a modern country. We have showers every day. I thank God for the shower. Every day. Every time I get in the shower, I think, oh, thank you, God, for the shower. Thank you, God, for indoor plumbing, because my grandparents had an outhouse. That's all I'm going to say. For years. There are things that you can enjoy. If you have the means, if you have the time, get a pet. Adopt from a shelter. Spend time with the pet. They're not going to be angry with you if you come and spend time. And some of them let you put a deposit down so they don't kill off your cat or dog that you love. And adopt that cat or dog and bring it to the vet for regular checkups. If you live in the Florida area, Animal and Bird Medical Center of Palm Harbor is fabulous. And the pets need dental work. Just like you do. Just like bad teeth can kill you, give you heart trouble, give you kidney and liver trouble and brain tumors, the same thing happens with your cats and dogs. More people neglect cats than they do dogs. Don't neglect anything, because it is also a spark of God. It's not exactly the same DNA, but they also experience pain, they experience discomfort, they experience love, they experience fear. They want to be loved. So if you're going to take the responsibility of something else, whether it's a child or a pussycat, that child, that pussycat requires medical care and your time. So you make certain that if you're going to bring anything else into your life, that you have the self-esteem to take care of that creature in the proper way. Because as a spark of God, you have the intelligence of God, and you have the intuition of the God force. And therefore, the knowledge and the ability to know better. Don't throw your money away on a 6-pack of beer or a movie theater. Put it in the piggy bank towards your vet or your pediatrician. Because as a spark of God, you're required to do the best for you and the best for all others you come in contact with. This is Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking. And if you just open your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you'll know that God and the angels are always with you.